Perfect. Nikki, you ready? Awesome. Okay, I'm so excited everybody's here. Welcome to our Women's History Month panel discussion. Today we really are excited to talk to several members of student organizations on campus that focus their missions on women and non-binary folks in fields that are traditionally dominated by men, or generally supporting individuals in spaces that are generally dominated by men. So I'm really excited you all are here. To start, give you a quick introduction. My name is Marnie Dow. I use the pronouns she, her, and hers, and I serve as the Assistant Director for Student Involvement at UNLV. Nikki, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
For sure. Hello, everyone. It's so great to see all your faces. My name is Nicole Servillon, and I am the social media assistant for student involvement and activities. I'm the person that's always emailing you guys about getting involved and trying to highlight all of your amazing organizations. I use she, her pronouns, and I am majoring in journalism and media studies. So a little bit about me.
Fantastic. Thanks, Nikki. So what I would love to do to start the program before we get into sort of the meat is really just go around and do some introductions. If you all can just give us your names, pronouns if you would like, and tell us what student organizations you represent, and maybe just a very brief, like, one or two sentences about the mission of what your organization is. I'll go ahead and just, since we don't know what order we're in, Jerian, can you get us started?
Yeah, definitely. So, hey y'all, my name is Darian Fluker, and I'm currently a junior here at UNLV, double majoring in both theater and hospitality. And I am currently the president of the Women of Color Coalition, or better known as WOKE, here on campus. And the main mission of WOKE is essentially to support women of color and female identifying folks here on campus and as well as in the greater Las Vegas community to offer roles in leadership and support and things like that, and gaining skills and gaining connections to be able to have stronger connections in their fields, especially those that are male dominated. And yeah, that's a little bit about WOKE.
Great. Kristen, why don't you go next?
Sure thing. How's it going? My name's Kristen. I use she, her, and hers pronouns. And I am an officer for the Association for Women Geoscientists, which is actually relatively new. It's been almost 2 years, I want to say. With me is Amanda, who is actually our wonderful president. And I'm currently the social media officer, but in the past I was also scheduling liaison. Because it's such a new association, we have so much to do, so we kind of all end up doing everything. There's lots of work, and yeah, we're just trying to essentially be a support and advocacy group for underrepresented groups in the geosciences and in the natural sciences as a whole. But we are basically a UNLV chapter of the larger AWG, which is for women geoscientists primarily.
Great. Amanda, why don't you go next, since you're all kind of a pair today?
Yeah, that sounds great. Kristen already gave a great introduction for our organization. My name is Amanda Ostwald. I'm a PhD candidate in geoscience, and I'm also the president of AWG.
Awesome. And then Ava, I know you and Darian are also a little bit of a pair today. Ava, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, so my name is Ava Carino. I use she, they pronouns. I'm Darian's right-hand WMX. I am the WOKE vice president, and I triple major in history, Asian American studies, and film. And for WOKE, it's mainly a space designed for women of color, by women of color. We, emphasize on respect, acceptance, empathy, strength, community, and sisterhood as our main values. And overall, I'm very excited to be here today.
Okay. Hannah, you want to go next?
Sure. My name's Hannah. I am a first-year graduate student in the radiochemistry PhD program, and I also did my undergrad at UNLV. And this year we started a new organization called US Women in Nuclear. It's a national group that's actually a branch off of an international group for women in nuclear. And we're now, bringing it to UNLV and hoping to, of course, provide a space for women, but really all marginalized groups within nuclear, because it's such a small field, but yet still so heavily dominated by the traditional male scientist role. So really trying to create a place for everyone and trying to remember that although we're scientists, we're human beings and we have very intersectional lives. And this is a place where we can talk about that and use that to help each other succeed, which is really great. And I use she, her pronouns.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see a new org represented here. I love when we have new orgs represented and getting involved. Aubriana, you want to go next?
Yes, so hi, my name is Aubriana. I'm the vice president of UNLV Scientista, and I'm double majoring in biology and psychology. And one of our main missions of Scientista is to raise advocacy and provide support for fellow undergraduate women in STEM, because as we all know, STEM is very heavily male dominated. So that's one of our main missions.
Yeah, and then Angelica, I know you two are both here from Scientista.
Hi everyone, I'm Angelica. I use she, her, hers pronouns as well. My role in UNLV Scientista is communications director, so I just run our social media profiles and create our marketing things like that, run the Instagram page. And I'm majoring in physics. I have minoring in math, biology, and neuroscience. And like Aubriana said, our organization really just our mission is to empower women and girls in STEM. We do a lot of events that reach out to also younger girls, like in middle school and high school. We do a lot of events like that to try to represent them as well.
This is such a power panel. I'm so excited you all are here. This is so fun. I love programs like these. Okay, so just a little bit about the format for today, and then Nikki and I are going to kind of co-host today's conversation. Really, that first question, I really just wanted to give everyone an opportunity, but that's the only time I'm going to kind of call on anyone individually, specifically. Really, in general, we're going to ask a question and kind of let you all popcorn around and answer however you feel comfortable. And I want to encourage all of our attendees. We've definitely got some questions we're going to ask, but if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat and we'll make sure we get to them as well. We want to make sure we're kind of addressing everyone's concerns, ideas, thoughts, whatever the case may be. So Nikki, you want to go ahead and get started?
Sure. So, again, we're all here because student involvement in registered student organizations is so important. That's one of our main missions in SIA. So we kind of want to get your thoughts on how has your RSO helped you feel empowered or supported to enter a male-dominated field? And again, whoever feels comfortable answering first, just unmute yourselves, and then you guys can popcorn if you'd like.
I'm happy to start us off. So like I mentioned before, U.S. Women in Nuclear is very new to UNLV. We started just last fall. And becoming an RSO, was a part of the process in terms of, next steps to get this ball rolling. But once I started thinking about, okay, who is going to help me do this in terms of faculty, I got a little nervous. I was like, oh man, I have pretty much all male professors. I don't know who would actually want to do this. Like, I don't want to make someone uncomfortable. But then I was like, duh, my professor, my PI and advisor, his name is Corey. I was like, he is absolutely someone that would want to do this. And his response was amazing. It was, of course, like, absolutely, like, please do this. Let me know what I can do to help. And so although it wasn't necessarily the RSO component, that was sort of the beginning of many instances where I realized that this is something we need and that this is a place that's going to support creating this organization. So it was kind of exciting to get that first really positive step.
I can go ahead next. So as for how does participation in this RSO kind of help me when it comes to like entering a male-dominated field, because geoscience is one of the least diverse natural sciences, sadly. For me, I just feel like it's very easy to get demoralized by your academics. I'm a grad student, and I absolutely am not saying that it is more difficult. It just definitely presents like new challenges being at grad school that I'm not like the best equipped for, and being a part of AWG where I can actually get things done just actually gives me a lot of confidence and almost makes me like happier to get out of bed in the morning, because when I'm only thinking about my academic work, it kind of just makes me want to go back to sleep and put it off and not worry about it. But I have so much more energy for AWG because I just love to like help. I'm definitely a helper. And I interact with so many women, especially our faculty advisor, Brenda Buck, Dr. Brenda Buck, I'm sorry, who is amazing, and she just inspires me to do better. And I just look up to Dr. Buck and a lot of other women that I interact with frequently, and they just give me a lot of hope and a lot of confidence that I don't really get necessarily from my academics. So
I'll go next.
I think I can, oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Hi. So, at our organization, UNLV Scientista, has really helped me. I've been a member for 3 years now, an officer for 1 year. And, when I first started Scientista, actually, I ended up changing my major to physics. I used to be a biology major, and that was partly because I was scared to take, these, more difficult classes, a different environment, but, the club really helped me gain that confidence to make that change. And we also host a lot of events such as study nights and a lot of meetings. And this last 2 semesters have been virtual, but we still do the meetings and stuff. And those study nights and socials have helped me make friends within our organization that, I can talk to them about school if I can't necessarily speak to my classmates and so on. Like, I have a group of friends that I feel comfortable discussing and studying with outside of that. So that's really helped me.
Yeah, I just think I want to echo what everyone is saying, that there's power in numbers. So when we organize together, we're finding people who have like minds, who will be supportive, who we can talk to about issues we've encountered with maybe our male counterparts. And so I think that there's really having a supportive environment where if you have an idea to create change, you can have other people sign on to that change has been just incredibly powerful for me. So I think that's what the benefit of this kind of organization is.
I can speak next. So, like everyone's saying, I think representation is really important, and I feel like Scientista really offers that to me because we're a group of women, especially like as a woman of color, we don't see ourselves represented a lot. So having that group and community that you can confide in, and get that support that you need, especially like being a STEM major can be pretty difficult, and having that support is one of the main things that I really appreciate Scientista being there for me. So I think it's really important.
No, I'll have to answer for each question. I'll go ahead and ask the next one. So can you all talk to me a little bit about, a couple of you mentioned being inspired by individuals, either professors or anything. You want to talk a little bit more about generally some individuals who are inspiring you, whether they be people on campus, off campus, in your field, public figures, private figures, whatever the case may be. Where are you finding some of your inspiration in your field, in your organization, whatever the case is?
I'm happy to start off again. I've got quite a few that jump to mind, and I feel really lucky to be in this field at this time because of these ladies. So for example, our current new secretary for the Department of Energy is a woman. Our previous assistant secretary for the Office of Nuclear Energy was a woman, and I've actually gotten to meet her multiple times because she is she really cares about reaching out to students, and so she makes herself available, and having that sort of like tangibility to people you look up to like that is just, it's hard to describe. But of course, you know, there are people like Marie Curie who really started all of this. And she is a prime example of someone who really didn't care what anyone else thought. She's like, I'm going to do this because I think it's cool. And I don't really care what anybody else thinks. And that I just think is a really, you know, positive, again, just role model to be able to have and say like, you know, these people are doing it. I can definitely do this too.
I can go after. Thank you for that question. For those who are kind of unaware of the history field, it's very, very male dominated. You're faced with some professors who say, oh, won't you be better in a classroom? You won't be fit for academia. You know, why are you spending so much time on this? Just for an extreme example, this is the usual amount of reading that I have in a semester as a history major. This is only half of it. So I don't know how I still have my eyesight, to be honest with you, but I've read multiple different scholars, and the ones that really jump out to me is the late Donna Ballion when she was a university professor of history at one of the UC schools, if I can remember correctly. She sadly passed away back in 2018, so I was unable to meet her, but her works is absolutely amazing. It's when she writes with kind of a jargon where it's understandable to those outside of the history field, but also she talks about personal histories of being Filipino American, from in Stockton to talking about the history of Filipinx Americans and everything like that. And the biggest kind of role model for me is primarily my grandmother. She was a nurse for over 40 years, and a lot of times I would always be so proud to talk about my Filipino heritage, but then they'll be like, oh no, we're not talking about you guys. Let's move on to a different like historical topic, as if like Asians weren't overlooked enough. We weren't able to talk about the histories of my own community until I got to college. So that's why I really look up to a lot of female scholars, is because I can understand where they're coming from, where they basically had to fight for a seat at the table to talk about their histories, to talk about you know, where they stand as an academic, and also just at UNLV themselves. There's so many women's in history right now. It's so nice, especially for this one grad student named Christine Jan Espinoza. She's been my mentor to me, and I affectionately call her Ate, which is kind of like a respectful title in my community. And she's really been kind of pushing the envelope of what it means to be a Filipino American in higher education.
Yeah, I definitely love to hop on this question. I would just say at a very base level of people who inspire me is just all of the incredible WMICs on my e-board, Ava included. They're honestly some ridiculously intelligent, kind, empathetic women that I'm so blessed to be able to have on my team at all times. And one thing that I specifically love about not even just our e-board, but our organization is the notion that we're all coming together, understanding that we have differences in our identities, but we share the identity at the intersection of being a woman of color. And we come together and discuss, of course, our similarities and our differences, but understand that our differences make us stronger in our connections rather than pulling us apart. So we're able to sit down and have those tough conversations and hear each other's experiences of, I will never be able to live Ava's experience of being a Filipinx American, and she will never be able to live my experience as a Black woman. So we sit down at the table and we break down the stereotypes and unlearn or learned biases that we're so unconscious of in our day-to-day lives. And when we sit down and have those conversations, it's like, wow. And it's always just so much better at the end of the day to understand that we're in this together, even though we're so different, we're all so similar, and we're here to fight the same fight and bring attention and respect and make space and room for women of color, regardless of the industry in any space. And yeah, it's honestly incredible to me, and to be able to be around them all times and do the work that we do on campus just makes me so happy. So yeah, those are definitely some women that I'm very blessed to be around at all times. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. And kind of going off of Darian's response, which I loved. Honestly, it kind of got me in the feels. It made me feel like super grateful because I also experienced that same feeling within my own RSO. So you talked about how you empower each other, even though you experience different things. So I kind of wanted to touch base a little bit on that. Again, this is a question for everyone. But how does your organization create a model of supporting each other as opposed to competing with one another? Because competition, trying to enter a male-dominated space amongst women or non-binary individuals can be very hard, but also just in general, how do you support each other without trying to compete with one another?
Well, I think I could start. So as the president of my RSO, my kind of leadership approach is to kind of let everyone else speak up at the table, present their ideas, and follow through on them. And I'm just here to be a supporter and to provide them with whatever it is that they need. I feel like there are so few positions available in geosciences to women, and it is a very competitive environment, but there is no reason that we can't support each other in pursuing our goals. And that's just been, I think we've been really great at letting people take their passion projects to the next level and giving each other the support that we need.
It's such a hard question to answer, to be honest, because within AWG and even including a lot of the people in the geoscience department, which admittedly is small, who are women, I've never felt much of a competitive like force from anyone, which I think is really wonderful. I think that it's like we don't necessarily have like a strong competitive environment. And when it comes to, internships and jobs, we all tend to specialize. So I actually don't necessarily feel that. And I'm not saying that it's like that other people don't experience it. I'm just commenting on how it's a difficult question for me because I feel like we're actually pretty lucky that our environment isn't really like that. But it's really fortunate.
Very similarly, that's actually something I was going to say as well. We have such a small field overall, and then radiochemistry is even more narrow in terms of, the other graduate students that I work with. And there are, like, I'd say it's almost 50-50 men and women, which is amazing. And still, I literally last week, I was talking with a friend of mine and she broke down in tears in the lab. Like we were working on stuff, I had my hands in radioactive material and we were like both, I was on the verge of tears and she was crying because we just don't always feel like we're supposed to be here. So it's not necessarily competing with each other, but like fighting yourself and that imposter syndrome and saying, I am supposed to be here. I am just as capable as anybody else. And that has really, again, we're so new as an organization. I more so can speak to these relationships because all the people in the club are people I'm already friends with. And that, I think is just going to be even more reinforced with this formal organization. So even though, we're also lucky to not be, nearly as, like head to head in competition for opportunities, we all still feel like, again, we're sort of fighting ourselves a little bit. And that support has been really nice.
I'll say something. So our club UNLV Scientista doesn't we don't have a lot of competition because our club caters to pretty much women in all STEM fields, so there's not really like, physics people against physics people or math people, like competing for the same kind of things. And we really try to make sure everyone has the same opportunities for scholarships and any announcements we make. So that way all of our members have access to the same kind of things. We also host a lot of workshops and events that help build our professional skills. Right now, we're working on a series of workshops where the first one was about actually imposter syndrome, and then we're doing a workshop on resumes coming up and things like that, and just a lot of events to kind of keep that competition out of it and build the confidence.
Can some of you talk about some of the networking opportunities that you feel like your student organization helps create, so that bring it back to the idea of how your student organization is supporting other students? I think a big part of student organizations is that networking piece, whether it just be with each other, with faculty members, with people outside. Does anyone want to talk about that networking piece?
I can touch on that. So with Scientista, we network with a lot of people. So like as Angie mentioned, we're planning a Girls in STEM Week. And with that, we've grown a connection with a CCSD administrator. His name's Sonal. So we've worked with him to get connected with middle schools and high schools so we can educate girls and, encourage them to join and to cater to, STEM fields. So we have a connection with them as well as a connection because a lot of our members happen to be biology members and pre-med with that. So we also have a connection with Touro University, and with that we've been able to give like presentations and meetings with doctors. So I think that's really important, especially to build those connections for our future careers for our members. So we always try to like branch off and meet with new people. We also have connections even within UNLV, our advisors with the museum that we have, the Barrick Museum, and with her we've been able to connect with Amanda Bing Botapakia, which if you guys don't know, she's an artist who was also formerly a STEM major, and she made an art exhibit, and we were able to bring her to UNLV, and she made an exhibit the past spring that was focused on women in STEM. So that was pretty cool. So I really like that we're able to branch out and get all these new experiences and connections for our members. And I think it just makes our mission even stronger because we're able to reach more people.
And to add what Aubrey was saying, we also have this event with we're actually really closely connected to the National Scientista Foundation, and in 2019 and years before that they hosted a Scientista Symposium, which was a great opportunity for networking. We flew out to Boston at Harvard Medical School, and we got to see like poster presentations from undergraduate researchers all over the country, and got to network with, like, they had like a career fair and things like that. So our organization hosts a lot of events like that, and our members have opportunities to go to things that provide networking like that.
Well, the AWG does mostly outreach events to connect with people in our community, but also within the university. So we're helping to plan a summer school course for the Multicultural Center. And we work with local schools, and we reach out to local teachers, and we provide them with geoscience education. And then we are also part of a larger national organization, so we can attend national organization level meetings, and we can also attend meetings at other chapter offices. So when they host events in San Antonio, we can attend virtually as well, which has been kind of a blessing in a weird way during the coronavirus situation, thankfully.
Thank you guys for all of your amazing answers. I kind of wanted to get a little bit more personal with you guys with this next question. Have you experienced your kind of like aha moment in pursuing the career you want to be in or the mission within your RSO? Have you just had that moment where you're like, I love what I'm doing right now and I can't wait for whatever is coming for me in the future because of this?
I definitely have had that. And it's also continued to evolve since then, and grow a lot stronger. So I started off pre-med like many STEM students do and knew that wasn't for me. So I didn't really know what to do, but just, because of a series of events, I ended up going to the Atomic Testing Museum just off of campus. And again, because of more series of events, I was like, wow, this is really cool. But then I started to learn about like climate change and the severity of our current, environmental situations. And that has manifested into environmental justice and realizing things like, what had happened and is happening with Yucca Mountain and the fact that the indigenous people lost their sacred land because the US stole it, and still trying to find ways to use nuclear power in a just way to fight for those communities to have access to energy and things like that. And so it's just sort of like it started off with seeing an atom being split, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I want to know more about this. But it's turned into realizing just how complex this whole industry is. And women in nuclear focuses on that side of the issues and addressing difficult conversations and taking things head on, which the industry has never wanted to do in the past. It's like, oh, we're not even going to talk about anything that happened before, and we're just going to pretend like it didn't and hope everyone's on board. And that does not work. So with that being said, I guess there was that like moment, but then it's just been continuously reinforced, and bringing it back to when like this group just really cares about those issues, and I don't feel as nervous about bringing up those types of things, as opposed to like maybe sitting in a room with my faculty members. I might not be so inclined to do that.
Yeah, I 100% have had this moment. And I feel like my very first moment of like knowing this is the space I'm supposed to be in with these people doing the work that we're doing, was actually our very first meeting, that took place in, it seems so long ago, but we've only been around for, right, 2 years, Ava. I believe our very first meeting was in the fall of 2019.
Yeah, September 2019.
Yep, September 2019. And then just from there, we had 60 people in the Tonopah conference room, which if y'all have been in Tonopah conference room, it is not fit for 60 people. So it was just being there with the energy and understanding that this space that Woke was creating was something that was such a large need on our campus, specifically creating that space for women of color, by women of color, to bring us all together is something it was wild. And I was like, yeah, I need to be here. Like, so we're going to be here. I'm going to do everything that I can. And I guess another reinforcing moment was we actually had our second annual Cross the Line event, which if y'all are familiar or aren't familiar with the Cross the Line exercise, it's essentially an interactive experience where statements are read aloud and then people place themselves in the room according to how they agree or disagree with those statements. And all of our questions were like identity based, in a wide variety of different identities, and just seeing the similar experiences that so many people have, and just that are almost heartbreaking. It's just understanding that there's so much change that still needs to happen, and there are systems that need to be completely abolished. There's systems that need to be heavily rehabilitated, and we're forever going to fight for a seat at the table. That's part of my work, and that's my promise and the promise of all the other folks that are in Woke. So women of color are taken seriously, our voices are heard, our feelings are understood, and just understanding that the work we're doing isn't just for me, it's for people who look like me, it's for all other women of color. So the obstacles that are being faced aren't a norm anymore. They're few and far between or completely not there at all. So it's just understanding and having that feeling of being a part of something bigger than myself, and understanding that this groundwork that we're setting here is influencing so many other people and bringing so many other people in and giving people a home, and that support of understanding that my voice needs to be heard, I can be heard, and I don't have to sit in the shadows as I've had to previously feel or experience in the past. So it's just always reaffirming to be in that space and seeing how the work that we're doing affects people and gives people the confidence and support that they need to do essentially whatever they want.
You stole my aha moments. You're lucky I had backups. So my other aha moments were the first Cross the Line event where we marketed it like 2 days before the event. It was right before the coronavirus. We were scrambling to get food, scrambling to get everything ready. And I am not joking when there was well over 50 people in that room. I was not expecting that at all. Much to my surprise, my supervisor also walked in and was like, "Oh, so this is how you are after hours." And I'm like, I don't want to lose my job. I'm just here. Listen, this ain't me. This is me after hours. It's okay. But that was one of the biggest aha moments because I was so used to having like my voice not being taken seriously throughout K-12 at CCSD that it was so interesting to not only see the diversity of folks on campus, but also understand what we go through, not only as a community, but also as students. The first Cross the Line event, there was well over 50 people in it. They were ranging from identity-based questions to personal questions to, people were sharing their experiences about things that I never really even thought about, like about, changing my name or, making it sound more professional, debating whether or not I can wear something because, I would have a different body type. And that really opened my eyes. That made me realize that being a woman and being a woman of color, it is so integral to the part that you have to take into consideration other factors that are above you, systematic racism, white supremacy, et cetera, et cetera. The second aha moment came after our 2020-2021 elections, and Darian won as president, and I was like, you know what? I'm so glad she did because I have no idea how to navigate the coronavirus. I have no idea. Darian's leadership in woke has really brought. At first, I was very hesitant because I was like, I don't know if people are going to go to our events. I don't know how virtual learning is going to work. Zoom fatigue is going to come up, everything like that. So I was very hesitant. But we've had in-person events from, grab and go events to sip and paint to our Cross the Line event that we just recently had yesterday that all follow the CDC guideline. And I firmly believe that those would not have happened without Darian's leadership. She brings a lot to the table and continues to bring a lot to the table, and it's going to be some pretty big shoes to fill if I win the presidency. So yeah, don't you be crying on me. Don't you be crying on me.
I just have there's an aha moment that I can definitely discuss. Darian said that one thing that she found to be a big aha moment was also like really heartbreaking simultaneously. And I kind of felt the same thing because I've always felt the pressure of sexism growing up. Pretty much every point in my life, it definitely has changed the way I like conduct myself. So I've always been aware that sexism was real, and if someone had told me statistics that kind of represent the reality of sexism, I would probably just, agree. Yeah, that sounds right. But our wonderful faculty advisor has, since the beginning, been providing us with so much just database research about truly like the demographics in science, especially at different academic levels, such as like undergrad to tenure faculty. And so just seeing like the numbers for how many women actually make it, how many non-binary people make it, seeing repeatedly that non-binary people and transgender people are not even included in most studies. And then also seeing, you know, the racial demographics of who makes it and who doesn't is just, you know, it's really heartbreaking, and it really, you know, makes me angry. And yeah, that was definitely like a more heartbreaking experience. That even though I already kind of knew that that's how things were, it's affirming because there's so much work that still needs to be done. Like you could ask so many people and they would just say, you know, things are great now, you know, for women, for example, or for people of color, but it's kind of a lie. And often they'll say that and they will only be including, say, like grad students. Like, yeah, there are a lot of women grad students, for example, but it kind of glosses over the problem.
Okay, Kristen, I want the next question based on something you just talked about. Can any of you talk about some of the gender-specific stereotypes or challenges or barriers that you all are either currently feeling or are helping members work through in your organization, and how you're tackling those challenges?
In my undergrad experience as a chemistry major, more so than now because I'm in a very small program and our classes are really tiny, but you know, we'd be in these lecture halls of, you know, 100+ students, and it would be a calculus course or a physics course, or you know, one of those where there's a lot of engineering students, there's a lot of science students, and both of those fields are heavily dominated by men. And I remember so many times that I was really nervous to ask a question because I don't even know why. I guess I felt like I didn't want to be like that annoying person, like especially girl who like asks all these questions, and like I don't know, I kind of limited my activity in those spaces because I felt like even indirectly and not actively recognizing it, I felt the fact that I was the only female in that room. And sometimes it kind of felt gross, I'm going to be honest. You know, like, especially if you're one of the last people to walk in, it's not always the most comfortable environment. And so, you know, that was kind of hard. And it's taken me getting to now and reflecting back on those times to even realize that that was the case. So, you know, I hope that fewer and fewer undergrads have to ever go through those types of things, and that eventually it'll be much closer to a 50-50, you know, split of in terms of no one is a majority of anything. That would be optimal.
I had an interesting conversation with some of my classmates back in my history classes. The stereotype is that there are 3 types of boys in history classes: military, World War II, and Revolutionary War. All obsessed with guns, all obsessed with weapons. That's kind of the stereotype. And it is true. I will tell you from definite personal experience, it is true. So my first, I guess, personal experience is that I do research about American imperialism and how it impacts the Philippines. I've done extensive research on this for the past 3 years of my life. I should know what I'm talking about, but my imposter syndrome comes in and tells me you don't know anything. So that's a big thing. One of my classmates, who is a male, decided to say that I don't know anything about American imperialism, and that everything that I've read is wrong, even though we've read almost the exact same sources. As he was describing this, my professor looks me in the eye and says, "Don't you dare start up." And of course, I start up and explain to him how much I know about American imperialism and that I don't need it explained to me because I already know this. My other favorite, I don't want to say memory, but the stereotype very is true. I was presenting my research at an underground I almost said Smithsonian, no, the underground research conference. And there's a professor from University of Maryland that came in. Obviously, this is pre-pandemic days. And he looks at my last name and is expecting a male to present. And here I am walking in, giving my presentation, and he blatantly says to me, "You don't belong in academia. Your people don't belong in academia. You belong in the classroom teaching middle schoolers." And that in itself was demoralizing, because here I am being a freshman, second semester at UNLV ever, as a history major. And I'm thinking, but I am working towards being an academic because I've surrounded myself with it. I've done lots of research on this. I know what I'm talking about. I don't want to teach middle schoolers or, K through 12. I'd rather teach at the university level. But just hearing that and knowing that people like this still exist is what kind of drives me to show, like, oh, I know what I'm talking about. And if you don't like it, there's the door. You can go.
I mean, can I just say that if you were a second semester freshman presenting at a conference, you were freaking killing it and obviously knew what you were talking about. That's my follow-up on that.
I love that. I love that you said that. Okay, I'm gonna keep my eye on the time a little bit. So I wanna make sure two things. One, I wanna say if any of our attendees have questions, please go ahead and put those in the chat if we haven't gotten to them yet. While we're waiting for those to come in, I wanna make sure, one of my favorite things to do in these panel discussions is to give space for you all to shamelessly market your organization or something you're doing, or your social media accounts, or whatever it is. This is your space to do that. I want to make sure that you all have the opportunity to promote whatever it is you're doing, your organization, whatever it is. So if anyone has a shameless plug and they want to get it out there, or there's something they want to say about their organization that they haven't had an opportunity to do so yet, now would be a great time to do that. Also, I would encourage you, while anyone else is speaking, to drop your social media handles into the chat, so that any of our attendees who are interested in following some of the awesome work you're doing, and we follow all of your pages, and I love seeing what the content you're putting in. So please put your handles in there, but also shamelessly plug your organizations now.
I'm gonna jump in and plug Scientista because we are having a fundraiser tomorrow at Firehouse Subs. It's the one that's near campus by Smashburger. So if you guys want Firehouse Subs tomorrow, from the time they open to close, just mention that you're with Scientista, and then 20% of the proceeds will help us with our funding. So please come.
We are mostly geoscientists, and I know it's a really small group of people, but you can be any kind of natural scientist, or you can just be interested in rocks at all. If you like rocks, feel free to join. We want to get back to in-person activities in the fall, ideally, but we do need a lot of hands on deck to start doing science outreach this summer virtually. So if you are interested, you can be an undergrad, a grad, faculty, whoever. We just need lots more people to come hang out with us.
Similarly, we obviously nuclear sounds very specific, and it is. And as of right now, that's the majority of our population. But I also studied communication studies when I was an undergrad, and I still do research regarding the rhetoric of nuclear power. And again, just trying to see this much more complex side outside of just the lab work that can be done. And so I really hope that we also can reach out to students who are studying political science and public policy, and really any major, like Amanda was saying, anyone who has either just an interest in nuclear or concerns about nuclear or anything, anyone who just has their interest piqued. It is a fully open organization. Like I mentioned earlier, we want to have the important conversations that most people don't seem to be willing to have. And so with that being said, it's very much open to any and everyone, and it is not by any means limited to just people who are studying actively nuclear things at all.
So Woke is actually currently going through our election process for the 2021-2022 school year. And anyone who identifies as a woman of color that is a student at UNLV may participate in voting. So you can meet all of our candidates on our Instagram page as of right now, as well as if y'all have any friends, again, who identify as women of color that are students at UNLV, send them our page. We have a ton of different leadership opportunities all across our e-board and our council boards that are open for the next school year. And again, we also are going to need all hands on deck to be able to cater to all the folks that we're trying to bring into the organization and do outreach with. And our organization is open to everyone, and all of our events are open to everyone. The more the merrier in terms of sparking great dialogue and conversation to be able to live and learn together. So yeah.
That's awesome. I want to respect everyone's time. We're coming up right on the end. Nikki, any final thoughts you want to give before we close anything out?
Yeah, I do just want to say thank you to all of our panelists. I loved hearing all of your experiences, all of your stories. Honestly, it was super insightful. I'm personally not a STEM major, but journalism can be a male-dominated field also, depending where you are. So it was really great hearing all of these experiences. And as always, tag involvement, UNLV on everything. We will always see it. We will always support you. And I'm super happy to have helped conduct this conversation with you all.
Yes, thank you all so much. We just want to offer an enormous thank you to each one of our panelists, who I think have done a really amazing job of giving us an individual perspective of their field, about how their student organization is impacting their personal experience, about how I think what I take most from it is the level of support you all are giving to each other. I think, you know, Nikki asked the question earlier about competitiveness, and I think the answers that all of you gave reflected that this is not a male-dominated space. I think that you all talked about how you are not competitive with each other, that you exist to support each other. I think in traditional male-dominated spaces, competitiveness is what actually drives innovation, what drives a lot of people to push further. And I loved seeing how often you all are actually just working to support each other instead of competing with each other. And so I think that's one of my biggest takeaways from our conversation today, just in general. And overall, just how amazing all of your organizations are and how amazing each one of you individually are as a student. Thank you for participating today. Thank you for continuing to inspire me in the work that I do, and hopefully other students who are watching and part of your organizations. It's obvious that your organizations are all really the beneficiaries of having you all in leadership. So thank you all so much. We're so happy you were here. Thank you.
So much for having us. This was like a therapy session. It was fantastic. And you all are amazing. I'm so excited that I've gotten to connect with you guys now. We have to stay in touch.
Yeah, please, you all, to make sure you connect with each other.